Welcome to the Great Mohau's YouTube channel, where Mohau explores everything science and technology.
Hello Tech Talkers, welcome back to episode 5 of Tech Talk Weekly with a computer science major. I am your host, the great Mohau, and if you love space, stars and planets as much as I do, today's episode is for you. We are learning two important tools for real programming, which are if statements and loops. I will explain each part and show you examples using the wonders of astronomy. Right, so before we go forward, I would actually like to make a quick recap of our coding journey so far. In episode 1, I shared my story of switching from physics to computer science. In episode 2, I had an interview where the guest was actually an old friend of mine who switched from human physiology to computer science. And then episode 3, that's when we learned about data types, which are like labels for your code, right? Helping computers understand if something is a number or integer, a single letter, which we refer to as a character, or a word, which we can refer to as a string, right? And we also broke down what programming and coding really mean. Now, in episode 4, that's when we were making programs that can talk to users using input and output for getting information from someone and showing them results. So in today's episode, we are going to cover if statements and loops, as I have already mentioned, right? And the questions we are going to answer are as follows. The first question is, how do we make our programs act differently depending on a situation? And the second question is, how can a program repeat an action like counting stars or listing planets without us typing the same code over and over, right? So when you get into like OOP, which is object-oriented programming, that's when you'll actually learn about writing code that can be utilized by any programmer, but you don't want to write the same code again and again. And these are just the basics, right? Before we can get into like object-oriented programming, which are, some of the programming principles we are going to cover at a later stage. So make sure that you subscribe, click on the notification bell, share the video with anybody, or share the channel with anybody that you believe might be interested in this type of content. And yeah, let's go together, right? So the answers to these questions is if statements, which are used for making decisions, and loops, which are used for repeating actions, right? So for the second question, we use loops, and then for the first question, we use if statements because that's when we are actually trying to make decisions. So great. Now, understanding if statements, because now I have to break down these concepts, if statements and loops. Let's try to understand what if statements or making choices really means in programming. Imagine you are a scientist looking through a telescope at stars, right? Some are bright and some are dim. As humans, we make decisions, right? If a star is bright, we write it in a bright stars notebook. And if it's dim, we add it somewhere else. We want our code to do the same thing, but automatically. So that's the importance, right, of like if statements. It will basically help our code to adapt into like different situations, but yes, into like when it comes to like making decisions or making choices. And then a definition, a simple definition of an if statement is that it lets your program check if something is true and then do something based on that. And the basic format or the basic syntax for an if statement is that you have if and then a white space in parentheses, you have the condition of that if statement, and then you go to a new line, you have like curly braces, and then inside those curly braces, you have a code block. That's where you basically write your instruction. If the condition is true or if the condition is met, then the instruction will be interpreted. Okay. But if the condition is not true, then that's when we basically have like if else statements. But now we're going to talk about an if statement, and later on we'll drill into the else statement, because if it goes together with else. So if the condition is not true, then what is it that we do, right? Great. Now, making the first example. The first example will be us detecting a bright star, and I will try my best to actually implement or apply the previous knowledge, right? I'll implement like data types and input and output functions. I don't want to hard code anything, but some of the stuff will actually be hard coded, but we'll try to implement what we've learned from the previous episodes. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, make sure that you watch episode 3 and 4 to learn about data types and input and output functions, right? So that you can understand what's really happening here, because you firstly need to start with like data types. So uh, for now, what I would like to do is basically to share my screen, because I don't want to draw much into like the theory. We have to get deep into this. Let's do this. I believe this should be it. Great. Now, what I want to do, I'm going to use like a double data type. And the reason I'm using a double data type is because I'm dealing with decimals. And then we want the variable name. Let me just do this. We want the variable name, and since we are checking for the brightness of the star, the variable name will just be star brightness. Then we can hard code it at this point. I'm just going to say 0.8, right? 0.8. Great. And then, so this simply means that if the value of the star is below 0.8, that means the star is basically brighter. But if it's above 0.8, it's dim, right? And we're going to use an if else statement for this part. If okay, if star brightness, if star brightness is less than 1.0, let's make it 1.0, because 0.8 is less than 1.0. 1.0 is simply 1, but since we are dealing with the double data type, it has to be a decimal. Great. So if the star brightness is less than 1.0, the star is bright, meaning the bright star is found, because now we are trying to detect a bright star, right? So we are going to use the functions that we learned from the previous video, the input and output function, right? So this will be the output function, console.writeLine, and we're just gonna say bright star found. Great. Moving forward, don't forget that semicolon there. And then this is when we have an else statement. That's where we apply it, just in case the value, the magnitude is not less than 1.0. It's actually greater than 1.0. If it's, greater than 1.0, then this is what we want to say. This star is dim. Great. So now this is us basically, detecting a bright star. But now the thing is, I have hard coded everything here, and we are gonna fix that in a minute. We are definitely gonna fix that. So if the star brightness is less than 1.0, the test or condition is true. But if it's greater than 1.0, then it's false, and the else statement will then be the output. But if it's less than 1.0, it's true, which means that the console.writeLine, the first one, or for the if statement, will be our output, meaning the output will be bright star found, right? Okay, now let's try to run it and see what we get and see what we get. Just gonna give it a minute. Okay. Mm-hmm. Where is my console now? Okay, it's still debugging. But now I actually hard coded the code or the star brightness variable, and I want to utilize the input and output functions. Well, the input function in this case, because I have already utilized the output function. There is my console. I just want to share my screen with you. Just give me a minute. Where is it? Yes. Come on, give me the output. Give me the output already. But I'm gonna change the code a little bit because now I'm trying to show you guys how it actually works with hard coding and how it works with implementing the input output functions. So over here, I just implemented the output function, but I did not implement the input function. And on the previous video, we did discuss the importance of input and output functions, right? So yeah. There you go. Bright star is found, and the reason is because we basically assigned the star brightness to 0.8, and 0.8 is less than 1.0. We hard coded it, but now we don't want to hard code anything anymore. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna change the code a little bit. I'm gonna tweak it a bit, but let's do this. Okay. You're sharing the screen. Now, how I would want to tweak this is that we firstly want to prompt the user. So this one, let's just do this. So we didn't talk about comments and all that. So this is basically like a comment. A double slash means either a single comment or a single line comment. That means the IDE will not run this. It will not consider this as part of my code. This is just me basically, commenting on the code. It's more like when you are writing a Word document and then you insert comments. You insert comments on your Word document, right? So this is not part of the code. Surely you've seen me using comments on my previous videos. So as I said, this is a single line, and then for a paragraph we would use this one. So it's basically a forward slash with an asterisk, and then an asterisk again with another forward slash. So you can write, paragraphs using this one. For a single line, you just use double slashes, two double slashes. So because now we want to prompt the user, I'm gonna say enter the star's brightness. Right? And then lower number is assigned to brighter or is equal to brighter is equal to brighter. Then this is what we are going to do. Let's leave some space here. Great. Now that was the output and the output function. Now we want to utilize the input function. Since we are using the double data type, it's gonna be double star brightness, and then it's assigned to double. Remember the parse method, right? Because the console only outputs strings, right? So we need to convert double into string so that it can be run or it can be interpreted. So it's gonna be console dot readline, which is the input function. That's the input function in C#. Great. Now what we have, the if else statement, it stays the same because we just wanted to change this into this. So this is me hard coding, and then this is me allowing the user to enter any number that they would like to enter. And I'll just share, well, run the code so that I can share the screen and you'll see what happens. Enter the stars brightness. Okay, there you go. Let me just share the console. There you go. Okay, so the console is there. Click on it. So enter the star's brightness. Lower number is equal to brighter. So if the number that I'm going to insert here it's less than 1.0, that simply means the code will then say white star found. But if it's greater than 1.0, it will then say the star is there, right? So let me just make an example. I've already made an example with a number that is less than 1.0. Now let's say 1.5. And then why aren't you running now? What happened there? Okay, I think I might have made a mistake. Let me see. So double star brightness is assigned to that, and then the error that I'm getting is system format. Input stream was not in a correct format. Let's do this. See, just need to fix this error. So console dot okay, let me do this now. This will not affect us that much, but do this. Let me use white instead of white line, and then enter the star's brightness. Lower is equal to brighter. Then we have the double star brightness is assigned to double dot parse console dot read line. Then we have the if else statements. The if else statement, not statements, because it's an if else statement. What would be the problem now? Let me try to run it again and see if this has been resolved. I doubt, no. Okay. Yep, we still have an error there. Let me just do this one. No, 0.8. Okay, I'm not even allowed to enter the value. Let's try to rerun it. Give it a minute. Today's session might actually be a bit longer because we are getting deeper and deeper into the programming principles, and that's when you'll actually get a few bugs here and there, but it's nothing we cannot deal with. 1.5. Okay, let me check my program over here. So console.readline double.parse. Let me try to do this. This wouldn't be the problem, but now let's see. Console.readline, okay, double.parse. Start brightness is assigned to. What could be the issue here? Double start brightness is assigned to double.parse. There you go, and then try to rerun it. Okay, still experiencing the same error. Let me remove it, rerun it again. Let's see this time around what we have. 1.5. Okay, something is wrong here. System.format exception. Input string was not in a correct format. The input string. So my string was not in the correct format. I mean, I did convert it. Exception unhandled. Okay. Okay. Now this one is gonna be an issue now. It's definitely gonna be an issue. Instead of a double, let's try to utilize an integer data type, because this is definitely gonna be an issue, and it's something I'll actually have to deal with. I just sit down with it and then find out what the real issue is. But it's with regards to, like, the conversion and all that. So instead of 1.0, it's just gonna be 1. If it gives me an error again with this, then yeah, that's all good. Okay, enter the star's brightness. Lower is that, and yeah, let's run it. Let me show this one first. And then let's run it. So enter the star's brightness. We are gonna enter 2. Okay. Now the issue was the double data type, but I still have to analyze that, do a bit of research of why it actually gave me an error. And on the upcoming episode, I will then come with an answer, right, to why I was getting an error then. But let's continue with like an integer data type for this, because the purpose is actually for you guys to understand how if, else, or well, if statements and loops actually work in programming. Okay, great. Now, moving forward, we have made an example about detecting the star's brightness, right? But now moving forward, we want to focus on else and else if statements. We've already covered the if statement and the if else statement, and we also have another statement which we refer to as the else if statement. So the reason we sometimes implement the else if statement or the else statement is because you sometimes have more than 2 possible results, and as a result, we have to utilize else if for more checks. Because the if statement, it checks if the condition is true. If it is true, it will then run what's on the code block for the if statement, but if it's false, it will not execute what's on the code block for the if statement. It will go to the else statement to check if the condition is true or false. If it is true, then it will run or interpret the code block in the else statement. But if the code block in the else statement is still not true, if it is false, that's when we also implement the else if statement. And just to check the condition, right? To do more checks for the condition so that we can have an executable code. So a simple example for this, let me just do this. If statement, and then this one, let's just remove it. Great. Now we want to focus on else and else if statements. But remember, there is a code, there is a comment, I mean to say, so that's what you use for a comment. Here's the second section. Let me just do this actually. Section B. Section B, and then that one will be section A. Great. Some space here. Forward this one. Section A. Okay. Great. Now, moving forward to the else and else if statements, an example that we can have, because now I'm no longer going to be utilizing the double data type, but I'm going to use the integer data type. So we have the star. Let's use capital letter S because now is another example. Star brightness. You don't want to have the same variable names if the examples are not actually related. But if they are related, you can then have the same variable name so that you can basically utilize it in those two examples. But the first example was basically about detecting the brightness of the star using an if statement, but here we are using an else and else if statement. So just so that my code is not confused or the interpreter is not, confused in any way, I'll just utilize a capital letter S for the star brightness instead of the small letter s that I utilized on the first example. So let's say, but now I don't want to hard code it. Remember that I was actually hard coding, but we don't want to hard code using if statement example. That one we've done it. So the console, it asks the user to type a value, and then the console.read line, that is the input function, it reads what they type as a text string, and then the int.parse method converts that text to an integer or a string, but now it's an integer, so yeah. But the parse is basically so that the console can run the line. As I said, the console only runs strings, right? And then the program now works for any value the user types, not just a preset one, because if we hard code, then the program will only work for a preset value. So if else and else and else if statements, what we want to do for those is we still do the same thing. Okay, let me just do this. Wouldn't have started like this. Let me just copy that code actually. This one over here. And I'm still going to utilize it. Still the same theme, but it's just me covering. Let's change it. Just me covering the else and else if statement. So else if star brightness. So on the first example, if the star brightness was less than 1, we would say that the code would say bright star found, and if it's greater than 1, the star is dim, right? So else if we now want a star that is actually less than 6, so else if the star is less than 6, this is what we want to do. Console, wait, console. You can see the star without a telescope, right? Because it's too, is it too bright if it's less than, yeah, if it's less than like 6, because if it's less than 1, I mean, it's brighter, but if it's less than 6, because 6 is a greater magnitude, you can see the star without a telescope. You can see it with your naked eyes, right? Your unaided eyes. That means without a telescope. And else, you need a telescope for this star. So let us not, basically, but let me try to do it like that, because now if I basically separate these two, it's a problem, because I'm basically doing the same thing. So let me just do this actually. There's no need for this, because if I separate these two, it is a problem. Let me just do this. I'm just gonna tweak it a bit, change a few things here and there. Instead of saying bright star is found, we'll say very bright star. And then for this one, instead of saying this is dim, that's when we can say you can see the star without a telescope. Great. But we are not done. Now we need an else statement, since we included an else if statement. So an else statement does not require a condition. Only an if statement and else if statement require a condition. But an else, it does not require a condition. So for this one, else, you need a telescope. For this one, that should be because if it's less than 1, the star is very bright, and if it's less than 2, let me make the magnitude, let me make it 6, much greater than 1. So if it's less than 6, so you can see the star without a telescope, else you need a telescope. You need a telescope for this star. That simply means the star, it's dim actually. For you to need a telescope, yeah, it is dim. But if you don't need a telescope, that simply means it's bright enough for you to see it with your unaided eyes, right? Yeah. So that's how we basically implement the else if and the else statements, right? The if statement is over here, the else if statement is over here, and the else statement is over there. And then running the code, I will just share the console with you guys. Just give it a minute. Okay, great. There we go. Okay, enter the star's brightness. Lower number is equal to brighter, right? So we firstly want to check the first condition for the if statement. So if the star brightness is less than 1, we know what that means. Let's see if decimals can work here. I doubt they can, but because now we are using integers, let's just test that out. As much as I thought, they cannot work here, and I'm getting an error because I'm using integers. If you're using integers, you cannot be using this. So let's rerun it and then use only integers. So I will have to increase the magnitude from 1. Let's make it 2. From 1 to 2. Then try to rerun it actually, because now I just modify the code. I just modify the code. Great. Now it's running, and enter the star's brightness, and let's say we enter 1. It will say very bright star. Great. But now you can tell we are not repeating anything, right? That's where loops will basically come in. But for now, we are just working on making choices, making decisions, right? That's where we use if else statements and else if statements. So the part that we are focusing on is making decisions. Let me also change this to if, else if, and else statements. Great. Yeah, that will be section A. And then let's see, everything is running. I hope you do understand, how to utilize if statements, else if statement, and then else statement, right? Using input and output functions, not hard coding your code or your variables. Because hard coding your variables, it basically limits you. But okay, that was the first part of it. Yeah, I think I've actually explained it into detail. I don't think there's anything I'm leaving out. Yeah. What we can do now is to basically come up with more examples based on astronomy. So we are gonna try to. I don't know if you guys have heard about exoplanets. So these are basically planets outside of our solar system, right? We are gonna try to search for exoplanets. That will be the second example. Let's search for them. Okay. Now enter exoplanets distance from Earth in light years. Because yeah, if we were to use kilometers, yeah, that would be something else. In light years, right? Okay. I have to use the right, not the right line. Now we are still using integers. Distance. There you go. And then from here on, we want to use the output function again. And this is what we want to say, enter the planets brightness lower number is equal to brighter. Yeah, it can work like that. And then same thing, the input function, or we want to say brightness, because now there is a different variable. There you go. And then if distance distance. So if the distance is less than 20, and so these are the operators that we utilize in programming. So and is not just a single and, it's basically two of them, and that's when you know we are dealing with and. And for equal sign, as I said, this is an assignment operator, but for equal we use two assignment operators to state that okay, it's an equal sign. And then for or, we just use, you know, those horizontal slashes, not horizontal but vertical slashes, two vertical slashes. They mean or. What else am I missing out? I think, yeah, I think those, yeah, those are the operators that we utilize, right? So, and brightness is less than 4. Then what would we like to do? We say, okay, so if the distance is 20 light years from Earth and the brightness is less than, well, if it's less than 20 light years from Earth and the brightness is less than 4, that means we have excellent exoplanet. We have an excellent exoplanet, right? Because like, yeah, 20 light years, that's a lot. So also the bright line, exoplanet, excellent exoplanet candidate. I think I can put it like that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that one can work. Great. Now we need an else. And else, that means if the condition is false, the exoplanet is not within our search range. Meaning, let's say not within our search range, or exoplanet not within our search range. Which one would be best? Not within. Not within our search range. I think that one can work best. Okay. Now let's run it and see. Let's run the code and see what we get. Didn't make any mistakes here. Doesn't seem like it. Distance, brightness. There you go. Good one. Yeah. But now we're gonna start from section A, then from section A to section B. Or let me actually try to implement this. This is something we'll learn at a later stage, but for now, I will need that. So this basically clears the information above after execution, right? Yeah, I'll run that afterwards, but for now, let's let's continue. So let's say 3. You can see the star without a telescope, and then enter exoplanet. Okay, I need to change that because now the spelling is incorrect. Exoplanet's distance from Earth in light years. If it's less than 20 light years, and the brightness in terms of distance, right? The brightness, if it's less than 4, then the exoplanet, it makes a good candidate, an excellent candidate, right? But now let's say 19, and then the brightness, let's say 5, and then it will say the exoplanet is not within our search range. Let me not put it just as not within. Let me just say exoplanet, not exoplanet, not within our search range, and then I just need to change this. Now let's run it so that I can show you guys how the console.clear function works. So after execution, it will just, yeah, but let me show you guys. There you go. So that's how it basically works, right? Enter exoplanet's distance from, let's say 20, and then let's say 3. Exoplanet not within our search range. It's because the distance is proper. No, it's not proper. It's supposed to be less than 20, and the brightness also needs to be less than 20. So let's try that. Let us try that. So this is the first section. Great. Now let's come to the second section. Let's say 19 and 3. Excellent exoplanet candidate. Great. Now, I think I've actually made this clear. You do understand, how to utilize if statements, else if statements, and else statements, right? So that your program can basically make decisions on its own automatically. It doesn't have to rely on you as the programmer. And now we're going to cover section B. Section B, which is for loops. Not for loops, but loops. Because now there's different types of loops. For loops, while loops, do while loops, but yeah, just in general, loops. Section A. Okay, yeah. Just wanted to refer. Loops. Great. Now let's cover loops, and for that I would actually like to comment this out so that when I run the code, section A doesn't run, only section B will run. That's another importance of comments, right? You always have to comment your code, so that, because you'll write your code, and probably you might be the only one who understands certain aspects of your code, and having those comments will basically help somebody else who will be going through your code to understand what you did on a particular line and why you did that, right? Or maybe what a particular line does. So that is the importance of comments, but that is not part of the context. For today, we are covering if statements and loops. But for now, we are covering loops. Okay. How about if statements again? Now, this is section B, or part 2, which is using loops. I did try to basically explain the operators in if statements. I spoke about the two assignment operators, which mean equal. And then if you have an exclamation mark and an assignment operator, that means not equal. And then for mathematics, we know that, yeah, before that, let me basically just type it down so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. So this one means equal, right? And then yeah, this one means not equal. This one, this one, this one, and this one. Well, this one is for less or greater than. Yes, this one we know it from maths. So this is basically less than, greater than, less than, or equal to. And then this one is greater than or equal to. I also spoke about this. It means and, right? And then this one I also spoke about it. The two vertical double slashes, they mean or. So those are the operators that we utilize in yeah, if statements. That was still for section A. Let's go into loops, guys. Let's go into loops. I've actually utilized those operators when I was doing the example of exoplanets. So yeah, I don't think I need more examples for that. So loops, that's for repetition, right? It's basically doing the same thing quickly. And why repetition, right? Why would we want to repeat something? An analogy I can make is if you imagine counting the number of stars in a galaxy, doing it one by one would take forever because, yeah, we just have a lot of stars, trillions and trillions of stars in our galaxy, in the Milky Way galaxy. So just imagine counting them one by one. And computers are super fast, but we need to tell them how to repeat actions. And that's where loops help us, right? So the for loop, in terms of like counting planets, the for loop is used when you know exactly how many times you want to repeat an action. And the format for the for loop is we have a for, white space, parenthesis, we have a starting position, we have an end condition, and we also have what to do each time, either to increment or to decrement. And you will see that, right? And then after that, we still have those curly braces and a code block. A code block, that's basically where you give the instructions, right? If the conditions are met. So an example would be us basically utilizing arrays. I will cover arrays. I will have like a separate episode where I cover arrays because there's also different types of arrays, but I'm not going to drill deep into that for now. What we're going to do, we will utilize arrays for now because we want the list of planets. So that's the example. We are listing the planets, right? So this is how the format of arrays. This is the format of arrays. And we are going to say planets. We use curly braces to show that, okay, what's contained within those curly braces, that is the list of that array planets, right? So the name of the array is planets and the data type for that array is string because, yeah, we are using strings. So the first planet we'll start with is Mercury, Venus, Earth. Let me not do it like this. Venus, Earth. Let's see what I'm doing. Mars, Jupiter, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, yeah, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Uranus, not Uranus. It's been a while, but okay. And then Neptune. Maybe we should also include Pluto. I remember back in, was it 2009, 2010, somewhere there. Pluto was once declared as, not a planet, but I'm not sure if it was 2009 or before that, but I remember I was still in primary, that used to be spoken about a lot. So, but let's include it. Pluto is there. Pluto is there. Hey. That's the name planets does not exist in the current context. What did I do wrong? Okay. The assignment operator here. We should be sorted now. Okay. Now let's use the loop. So you can see the intelligence, it's already, prompting me or giving me an idea of how loops work. So the star that I was talking about, that is it. Int I, that I stands for index, right? So that's what we want to do. Int I, and then let's assign it to 0 because that's where we want to start. So yeah, but no, I'll talk about that because now in arrays we don't start counting from 1, we start counting from 0. Well, let me just say in programming usually we start counting from 0, right? We don't start counting from 1. So hence we start from 0, and then we are gonna say index if the index I is less than the planet's length. So our the planet's length is 9, right? So this, because I included 9 planets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. So if it's less than the planets, planet's length, we then want to increment it. I will explain what this means. Great. Console dot planet. This seems like now it's basically advanced programming, but hopefully you're following along. I will explain though. We'll explain because I actually want to take it easy with you guys before we get into advanced programming principles. So planet plus the index I plus 1, because now the increment simply means that we are adding 1 all the time to the list or to the output. So you add 1 to index I each time, right? Each time the code is being executed. Okay. Great. Now we want to output planets I for index I. And so the int I assigned to 0, that is our starting position. Because as I had already explained, we start counting from the first planet, and in programming we start counting from 0, meaning Mercury is at an index 0, not index 1, right? And then index I, when it's less than the planet's length, we repeat as long as index I is less than 9, which is the number of planets I have included on the list, right? And index I plus plus, that's an increment. That means we add 1 to index I each time the code is being executed. But if it was index I minus minus, that's what we call a decrement, and we subtract 1 to index I each time the code is being executed. So you will see how it works, basically. You'll see how it works, right? Okay. Now, that's the for loop. That is the example that we have. Then let's see what happens, right? Because now it's only going to run section B. I have commented out section A. Let's see what we have. Give it a minute to run. There you go. So the first execution, planet 1, is Mercury. Then you add 1. It no longer says planet 1, it says planet 2. Planet 2 is Venus. You add 1 again. It no longer says planet 2, but it's planet 3. Planet 3 is Earth, just like that. So that's how loops basically work. This is the for loop. We have different types of loops. So yeah, I will cover the other loops, and the other loop that I will cover is the while loop. So this one we basically repeat up until we are done. We use a while loop when we don't know how many times we need to repeat, right? So you just repeat up until you are done. But the for loop, you basically use it when you know exactly how many times you want to repeat an action. So we knew that we had 9 planets, so we want to repeat planet 1, 2, 3 up until we reach planet 9, because we know that we have 9 planets. But with the while loop, we don't know how many planets we have or whatever it is that we're dealing with. We just don't know how many times we want to repeat, right? So an example would be to actually catalog stars until we reach our target. And the way I would do it is, okay, let's do it like this. I comment that out. Let's also comment this out so that we focus on one thing at a time. So we want to basically catalog stars until we reach our target. And how do we do that? This is how we do it. Firstly, need to initialize, well, declare and initialize. We've got the star found name variable, which we can assign it to 0, and then int target. We then need to assign that to a specific number, and I'm just going to assign it to 5 for now, just to make things simple. And the while loop, this is how it works. Star if, well, while star found is less than the target, meaning while the star found, if it's still less than like 5, then this is what we want to do. The star that is found, right? We basically increment it and then console the bright line. The star number plus the star found variable. So basically plus star found. This is what we want to output. Catalog. This has to be yes. So what this will output is basically while the star found is less than the target, the star found will be incremented, and then the output will be star number plus the star that is found catalog. So it will be like in one line, but let me show you from the console. Let me just show you this from the console. I missed something important and it might give me an error. Yep, it's giving me an error. I missed my semicolon over there. And then since we are dealing with, we also need this over here. So all stars recorded. Great. So this will basically print 5 lines, one for each star that is found, right? And let's run it again. So star number 1 cataloged, star number 2 cataloged, and then all stars recorded. Great. Because over there was no input function. You can basically implement the input function so that the user can input like different stars, and then if the star is found, we'll then get the record of those stars. But that is just me basically showing you how the while loop works. That is like the format for while loops, right? An example I would actually like to make so that we cover almost everything is let's use what we've learned in the small astronomy like themed mini projects, like the list of planets, and then I'm gonna give those planets like sizes. I'm gonna use their sizes in kilometers with regards to their diameters, right? So the size is measured with regards to their diameter, the diameter. So what I want to do is, should I really do that though? Because the thing is, I've already explained the for loop and the while loop, right? Now what I want to basically do is me trying like to find giant planets utilizing the for loop and the if statement. Let's not do that today. Let's not do that today. So it checks that code will basically check if each planet in the list is a gas giant by looking at its size. Yeah, I think I should cover it. I'm actually contemplating because now I'm looking at the time and should I cover it? Nah, I'll cover because now it's gonna be it's a bit advanced, and as I said, I want to take it easy with you guys. So what I think I'll do is that because now this video it's longer by now, I don't want it to be too long. Next week, it will basically be a continuation of what we were doing today, right? So for now, I think I'll end here, and then next week, yes, it will be a continuation of what we covered today. The last part that is important is the common mistakes that you should basically watch for when you're dealing with loops and if statements, right? So with infinite loops, you have to make sure, like always make sure that your loop variable changes or your program will never stop, right? And when it comes to like counting from zero in C sharp, arrays or lists start from zero, not one. In programming, basically, right? The programming languages that I've dealt with, Python, C++, C sharp, Java, we started counting from zero, not one. Right. So you also need to watch out for, the choices, right? You need to come up with like clear choices. Only one if, or else block runs each time. So make your conditions clear, right? Um, you cannot have two conditions on two statements. What I mean is you cannot have the same condition for an if statement and else if and for an else if statement, because now you're using the same condition but for different statements, right? So that's the reason you have to have like clear choices, and by that you have to make your conditions clear, right? So well done, tech talkers, right? Today you actually learned how to make your C# programs think and repeat using if statements and loops. These ideas are the backbone of writing smart, useful programs, whether you're counting planets or making a quiz for your friends, which is something I'm actually thinking about for next week. But as I said, this is the first part, and the next week it will be a continuation of what we have already started, right? Now, your mission is to tweak the examples that I made and see what happens. Try writing a simple astronomy quiz for your friends, and do not forget to like and subscribe for more simple coding lessons and astronomy fun. Not just astronomy, but science and tech fun, because I made the examples to be based on astronomy because I am interested in astronomy, right? I've been interested in astronomy since fourth grade, and yeah, it's all because of the Apollo 11 mission article. So yeah, drop a comment if you have questions or want more space coding or just coding in general. This is the Great Mohau, and I am signing out. Keep coding and never stop reaching for the stars. Great.
Brought to you by Royal Mercy Institute.